The following video discusses sensitive topics such as suicide, drug addiction, and rape. If you or someone who you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, call 988. Number 27 may be the most infamous in the history of rock music. This number is taken on mythical status because of the prevalence of many iconic, groundbreaking musicians who died at that age. There is now a certain mystique surrounding the age of 27, and the notion of important musicians dying young. The death at 27 phenomena retook root in the years 1969 to 1971. During these 2 years, rock and roll lost multiple musicians at the age of 27, including Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison. Kurt Cobain's death on April 5th, 1994, reunited interest in the 27 Club. Since his death, there certainly has been a greater focus in the media surrounding the 27 death phenomenon. The high-profile death of Amy Winehouse in 2011 once again brought renewed interest in the club. Also retroactively, influential blues musician Robert Johnson was starting to receive credit as one of the founding members of the 27 Clubs. So this is CJ Baker, and I'm a lifelong music fan. And not only do I enjoy listening to music, I also have an avid interest in the historical developments of music and also music mythology. And one of the more fascinating aspects of music mythology is the 27 Club. So what I'm going to do with this video, so I already mentioned some of the more prominent members of the 27 Club, but there's also a number of other musicians who died at 27 as well. So for the remainder of this video, we're going to look at 10 notable musicians who were still significant but had a lower profile than those previously mentioned names. So a lower profile than Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and I'll even say Robert Johnson. So before we get into that list, I just want to mention, if you want me to keep making these videos, please like and subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. So now for the list. So Rudy Lewis, 1936 to 1964, with roots in gospel music, including a stint with the Clara Ward Singers. Rudy Lewis received a secular breakthrough when he replaced Benny King as one of the lead vocalists of the legendary R&B group The Drifters. Lewis' smooth yet expressive voice helped define the group's early 1960s sound, contributing lead vocals to a string of classic hits, including Some Kind of Wonderful on Broadway and Up on the Roof. On May 20th, 1964, the day the Drifters were scheduled to record Under the Boardwalk, Lewis was found dead in his hotel room from a suspected drug overdose. Another member, Johnny Moore, took over the lead vocals in his place. Lewis' death cut short a promising career during a golden era of soul and R&B. Alan Blind Owl Wilson, 1943 to 1970. Alan Wilson was the co-founder, guitarist, harmonica player, and co-lead vocalist for the blues rock band Can Heat. Nicknamed Blind Owl by John Fahey for his nearsightedness and scholarly personality, Wilson had a deep knowledge of Delta blues and played a significant role in reviving interest in artists like Son House. He also sang lead on two of the band's biggest hits, Going Up the Country and On the Road Again, which became anthems of the Woodstock era, which the band notably performed at. Despite professional success, Wilson struggled with extreme depression and feelings of alienation. On September 3rd, 1970, he was found dead from a barbiturate overdose. Despite speculation of possible suicide, no suicide note was found. Wilson's delicate vocals, authentic blues scholarship, and masterful harmonica playing, which was referred to by John Lee Hooker as the greatest harmonica player ever, it made him a unique figure in the late 1960s rock. Sadly, he was overshadowed by the more famous members of the 27 Club who died during the same time period. Ron Pigpen McKernan, 1945 to 1973. Ron Pigpen McKernan was a founding member of the Grateful Dead. On March 3rd, 1973, he was found dead of a gastrointestinal hemorrhage complicated by years of severe alcohol abuse. Much like fellow 27 Club member Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, McKernan was one of the early leaders of the band who steered them towards blues and R&B. Eventually, guitarists Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir took the band in an improvisational and psychedelic direction, a style that the group became known for. This caused McKernan to take a back seat at concerts, and his role diminished until he was forced to step down from the Dead due to worsening health. McKernan also had a brief relationship with fellow 27 Club member Janis Joplin, and on a couple of occasions, the two duetted on the Dead's live standard, Turn On Your Love Light. Dave Xander Alexander, 1947 to 1975. Dave Alexander was the original bassist for the proto-punk band The Stooges, formed in Ann Arbor, Michigan, alongside Iggy Pop, Ron Asheton, and Scott Asheton. Alexander's raw, driving bass lines were central to the band's early sound on the first two records, The Stooges and Funhouse, both of which later became hugely influential in the development of punk and alternative rock. Playing a role in helping to compose the tunes on those first two albums, Pop specifically mentioned the role Alexander has played in being the primary music composers for the songs We Will Fall, Little Doll, 1970, and Dirt. However, Alexander struggled with alcoholism, which increasingly affected his reliability and performance. He was dismissed from the band in 1970 after performing stoned and intoxicated at the Goose Lake International Music Festival in Michigan. On February 10, 1975, he died of pulmonary edema related to acute alcohol poisoning. Though often overlooked in mainstream rock histories, Alexander's primal, minimalistic bass work helped lay the groundwork for punk music's aggressive simplicity. Pete Ham, 1947 to 1975. Pete Ham was the lead singer, guitarist, and primary songwriter for Badfinger, a Welsh rock band closely associated with the Beatles and signed to the Beatles record label, Apple Records. Ham wrote or co-wrote hits such as No Matter What, Day After Day, and Baby Blue. He also co-wrote Without You, later a massive hit for Harry Nilsson and Mariah Carey. Despite commercial success, Badfinger suffered from severe financial mismanagement and an exploitive contract, leaving the band members in dire straits. Overwhelmed by financial and personal pressures, along with ongoing struggles of mental illness, Ham died by suicide on April 24th, 1975. The suicide note addressed his 8-month pregnant girlfriend Anne or son Blair and expressed his bitterness towards the band's manager, Stan Pauley. The note read, Anne, I love you. Blair, I love you. I will not be allowed to love and trust everybody. This is battle. Pete, P.S. Stan Pauley is a soulless bastard. I will take him with me. His death marked one of the most tragic episodes in 1970s rock history. Though not as famous as some of the other members of the 27 Club, Ham is remembered as a gifted melodicist whose songwriting continues to resonate. So Chris Bell, 1951 to 1978. Chris Bell was the lead guitarist and co-songwriter for Big Star, the band he started with fellow songwriter Alex Chilton. In fact, Bell, bassist Andy Hummel, and drummer Jody Stevens were the band Ice Water, but when Chilton played them his own songs, the trio became a quartet and promptly renamed themselves Big Star. Bell left the band after their influential but commercially overlooked power pop jam #1 record. He released an amazing but unfortunately underappreciated single in 1978, I Am the Cosmos, both with the B-side, You and Your Sister. These two songs were later included on 1992's I Am the Cosmos. Not a proper album, but it was a posthumous collection of recordings made between 1974 to 75. Bell died on December 27th, 1978, when he lost control of his Triumph TR7. It struck a wooden light pole which fell on top of him, killing him instantly. His funeral took place the next day, sadly coinciding with Chilton's 28th birthday. Bell continues to be an influential figure in power pop and indie rock. Jacob Miller, 1952 to 1980. Jacob Miller was a prominent Jamaican reggae artist who started his recording career at 13, recording a few singles for the influential ska and reggae producer Coxsone Dodd. After starting to receive some attention for solo career, he became the replacement lead singer of the band Inner Circle. Known for his charismatic stage presence and powerful voice, Miller rose to fame in the 1970s with the socially conscious tune Tenement Yard, which was actually credited just to Miller, but it featured the rest of the band. And also UK hits such as Everything Is Great and Stop Breaking My Heart. Inner Circle became one of Jamaica's leading reggae acts during this period. Miller was also featured in the 78 cult film Rockstars, which showcased reggae culture. At the height of his popularity, Miller died in a car accident on March 23rd, 1980, after his vehicle collided with a truck in Kingston. His death was a major blow to the reggae community. Huge in Jamaica, Inner Circle later found increased international success after his death. But Miller remains an iconic figure in roots-set reggae and is remembered for his important contributions to the genre. D. Boone, 1958 to 1985. D. Boone was the guitarist, lead vocalist, and primary songwriter, along with bassist Mike Rock, for the punk band The Minutemen. The band was influential for their DIY re-jam econo ethos. Their eclecticism also expanded the boundaries of punk, best showcased by their classic and ambitious 1984 double album, Double Nickels on the Dime. So Boone died on December 22nd, 1985, in a freak van accident. He was lying in the back of the band's Econoline, recuperating from a fever when the rear axle snapped in two. The van ran off the road and the rear doors flew open. D, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, flew out the back of the van, breaking his neck and dying instantly. Following Boone's tragic death, Rott and drummer George Early continued as firehose, urged on by singer-guitarist Ed Crawford a massive Minutemen fan who wanted to see the two musicians continue playing. Fire Hose lasted until 1994, except for a brief reunion in 2012, after which Crawford and Hurley played music sporadically. Rot, meanwhile, has evolved into one of punk rock's elder statesmen, with a long career and dozens of records to his credit. In fact, every album Rot has released since the end of the Minutemen has been dedicated to D. Boon. He has also written many songs as a direct tribute to his fallen bandmate.
Our band could be your life.
Mia Zapata, 1965 to 1993. Mia Zapata was the lead singer of the Seattle punk band The Gits, known for a raw, blues-inflected voice and fierce stage presence. Zapata helped the band gain a strong following in the early 1990s alternative scene. The Gits' debut album, French in the Brewery, received critical praise for its intensity and authenticity. On July 5th, 1993, Zapata was raped and murdered while walking home in Seattle, a crime that shocked the music community. Her death prompted local musicians to form Home Alive, an organization promoting self-defense and violence prevention. Zapata is remembered as a powerful performer whose life and career were tragically cut short just as the Seattle scene was gaining global attention. Also in connection with the Seattle music scene, Zapata's death was followed by the high-profile suicide of Kurt Cobain on April 5th, 1994, and the heroin overdose death of Hole's bassist Kristen Plath on June 16th, 1994. All three were 27. But before we get into our final artists, we're going to consider a few other notable but lesser known members of the 27 Club. So, of course, this is not an exhaustive list. So, for example, in 1998 and 1999, two notable rappers were murdered at 27. Fat Pat of the Screwed Up Clique and Freaky Ta of the Lost Boys. Also, on December 18th, 2017, Kim Jong-un of the K-pop band SHINee committed suicide. So in the case of SHINee, they were massively huge in South Korea and had a pretty big following in Japan. So they're not lesser known in those localities, but maybe to the rest of the world they were. Also, even though the 27 Club primarily focuses on musicians, the club did get more attention with the June 19, 2016 death of actor Anton Yelchin, who did less notably play in a punk band called Hammerheads as well. But he was more known as an actor, and one of his notable roles is playing Pavel Chekhov in the reboot of the Star Trek movie franchise. So back to the list, and we'll discuss our final artists. Richie Edwards, 1967 to 1995. The rhythm guitarist and main lyricist of the British alternative band Manic Street Preachers is one of the more mysterious additions to this list. Edwards went missing on February 1st, 1995, and he was officially presumed dead on November 23rd, 2008. Because his car was found abandoned on February 17th, 1995, in proximity to the Severn Bridge, it is widely believed that he committed suicide. Before these events, Edwards was known to be deeply disturbed. One of the more obvious signs was when he took a photo of himself with the words "for real" carved into his arm. The mysterious circumstances surrounding his disappearance have helped cement his cult status within the UK. The Manic Street Preachers' ninth album, Journal for Plague Lovers, was released on May 18, 2009, and features previously unused lyrics written by Edwards. So this concludes the list, but I'd just like to share some final thoughts. So the question is raised, why 27? And there is no shortage of theories on that. Like, for example, some numerologists feel that 27 is a significant number. And there's also theories concerning the number of 27 club members who happen to learn, own, write lighters, and so on. So you could really go down a rabbit hole in studying the mythology of the 27 Club. But of course, there's also many that dismiss the 27 death phenomena as simply an unexplained coincidence. But there's also the obvious factor that many of these artists who died young at 27 lived lifestyles that contribute to that. But this doesn't necessarily answer the question why 27, like why not 26 or 28? But it is interesting, even though there may not have been as many notable deaths at 26 and 28, there have been notable musicians that died at that age as well. So I'm just going to mention that before I conclude. This video is based on an article I wrote on my Medium. And on my same Medium, I also have written articles on musicians that died at 26 and 28. So if you want me to make future videos on musicians that died at 26 and 28, please let me know in the comments. And if you want me to do a future dive into the lore of the 27 Club, let me know as well. Also, feel free to let me know in the comments if you have a favorite member of the 27 Club. Or is there another less prominent member of the 27 Club that I did not mention in this video? So along with checking out my Medium, which I'll put a link in my comments, you can check out my recently launched Substack as well, which features archives of my podcast, Ongoing History of Protest Music. And also feel free to check out the website, Ongoing History of Protest Songs.com. And once again, if you want me to keep making content, please like and subscribe and click on the notification. Thanks for watching, and please stay safe.
I can't live if living without you. I can't give I can't give anymore.